So when I first saw the new trailer for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, the 2020 reimagining of the first two Tony Hawk's games, I got excited and I sent a link to my mate in Sydney. She and her boyfriend both love skating, and the reply I got was, "Tom says EA's Skate is better." Blasphemy. How could someone say such an outright mistruth via text message of all mediums? He says Skate is better because it's, quote,
more realistic.
I wrote back, tell him to watch the news tonight and tell me how good reality is. Later, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I booted up Skate 3, downloaded Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, I watched old episodes of the 9 Club, all in search of a more solid contrast between the two games, more than just Skate is more realistic. But what if Tom's right? What if the original Tony Hawk's game shot for realism, but they were constrained by technology, or even misguided by some 90s design sensibility? This train of thought continued. Why was I so much more into Tony Hawk's than Skate? Have I wasted my life? Is this why Dad left? On the brink of an existential crisis, I had a breakthrough. They're actually kind of pretty different, and comparing them is a little bit weird. Okay, so the easiest way to illustrate this is through their controls. Tony Hawk's uses a button combo system inspired by fighting games, so different combinations of button presses do different tricks. EA's Skate, on the other hand, went for something that I'm still to this day kind of amazed their publisher let them do. So inspired by the Fight Night games, the player has to move the right analog stick in different patterns in order to pull off tricks. In a sense, it's the same as Tony Hawk's system, just replacing button presses with stick movements, but the key difference is the word analog. Negotiating the exact movement that changes a varial kickflip into a tray flip is something the player has to practice and get a feel for rather than memorizing a digital button combo. Having to work for your tricks seems to be something the Skate games held up as their core philosophy. And while the system for controlling your character and doing tricks never changed, more ancillary features of the games did. So something that annoyed me between Skate games was how in each one the city felt progressively more and more like a skate park and not like a real place. In Skate 2, the city of San Vanalona was inspired by the architecture and features of San Francisco, Vancouver, and Barcelona mashed together. San Vanalona was by no means the most living, breathing world in video games, but its design felt crafted with more than just the player in mind. I don't know if that makes sense, but like if you turned off the skateboarding and handed the controller to someone and asked them what kind of game this city was from, I think it would take a while before you got an answer. I mean, they work it out, but there's enough minutiae and like architectural detritus scattered around that when you play the game, you don't feel like you're in a place that was specifically designed to be skated. Tony Hawk's is the polar opposite. You see a picket fence? No, it's a grindable rail. See some packed ice? No, it's a quarter pipe. See someone like walking their dog? Well, look again, it's actually a mini ramp. It's kind of insane how many everyday objects in this game are turned into either vert ramps or infinitely grindable ledges. It's the kind of thing that, say, had you not played the game in years, might lead you to make the claim that its lack of realism made it inferior to EA's Skate games. Seriously, Tom, what the fuck? It was something I butted heads with at one time. In high school, I was so good at Tony Hawk's that none of my friends could come anywhere near besting me, and I really didn't feel like the challenge I was getting from the game was close to how it was when I first picked it up. I started to blame this on the game's lack of realism, thinking that if the game was just less forgiving, I would somehow recapture that feeling of mastery I'd gotten initially. And in a way, it was true, right? I did have to work to learn Skate's controls when that game first came out, but eventually a similar thing happened. I spent all the time that my friends spent kissing girls, instead getting really good at playing a skateboarding game. And again, I just felt like I ran out of things to do with it. So if you side with me and my claim that even realism gets old, then how are these games that different? Remember before I said that these games were in fact pretty different? Well, the crux of it is that both games had a very different goal for the same subject matter. I mentioned before how Skate's core design philosophy was making you work for your tricks. Well, it goes a little further than that. I think the first two games tried to recreate the experience of being a skater to teach you how to look at the world differently with 50-50 vision. It's something it's difficult to explain if you've never skated, but you just sort of look at things on the street differently. You're always sizing things up, deciding in your head if this part of the city can be reinterpreted through the medium of skateboarding. The Tony Hawk's games do not do this. It's not that the developers weren't thinking about it, it's just that they were designing the perfect skating experience, free of cops, skate stoppers, rusty metal, snap decks, rough concrete, and everything else that ruins a skater's perfect line. They took the philosophy to 11, basically saying, man, sometimes these laws of physics can really get in the way of a great skate sesh. And as the series progressed, they let players create lines on a scale that can only be described as godlike. EA's Skate tries to be a faithful representation of skating, and it's a nicely realized snapshot of the art. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater tries to be a faithful celebration of skating, and it's a nicely idealized canvas for an artist. In the end, I think both series are fantastic, inventive, and they're deep. You know, they both recreate the art form of skating from two completely different angles, and I think both would be poorer without the other to contrast them. Skating is just good, and I'm glad these games exist and have inspired so many people to take it up and give it a try. So yeah, thanks for watching. Also, I think that Skate had a way better soundtrack.